Oh my goodness. So, good morning, everybody. Totally unplanned doing this today. Just was playing around with the equipment. I actually hit the live button for about 5 minutes just a little bit ago, and realized that I was recording myself, you know, singing into the microphone or whatever. So, deleted that crap. But what we got going on right now is I'm just tying some 3/8 ball heads, and I'm doing a fire tiger pattern. It's a chartreuse yellow, and I like using the nice bright, like a fluorescent orange. It's a real pretty jig, real good jig for walleye, other fish too. So, but let me see. Let me double check, see if there's volume. Pardon me. Let me see. And there is. I got a tablet running just so I can kind of watch myself, even though there's a little bit of a delay. But let's get into it. So, like I said, 3/8 ball. It's a good sized jig. I'm using Pack Bay rod winding thread, size A. And this is purple. You can use any color thread. Brown would probably be my next choice, or orange, or even if you had like this bright chartreuse, that would be okay too. But the purple will complement the stripes that we add at the very end. So I'm going to begin with the chartreuse tail. I'm going to find my pinch. And this is a 3-color jig. So you try to make your pinch a third, and a third. However, if I got a little heavy with the first 2 colors and it was more 50-50, that final orange, that belly color, could be sparse. You know, sometimes you're looking at perch that you catch, and sometimes the belly is nice and bright and orange, and there's a same with sunfish, you know, there's a big section that's that bright orange color, and then sometimes it's very dull. So even though we try to do a third, and a third, I think when it comes to tying any jigs, even if it was a 2-color jig, your colors don't have to be exactly 50-50 or a third, a third. And that's where your style will come in. So if I was really heavy with this chartreuse, but I was able to reduce the size of the next 2 colors, and it was still a jig that had a good proportion, it's still a good jig. And that's where an individual tier's style will come in, and it's how you fix those, or not fix, but it's how you respond and adapt to the differences in either your techniques or your material. So I'm measuring this out, and I want the hair to be the length of the body past the bend of the hook. So on this vise is to the end of this silver section. Once I get the size the way I want it, I switch my grip one last time and keep this left hand tight throughout the entire process. You can lay it right on top. And that was 5 wraps towards the bend of the hook, and 3 wraps back towards the head. Give that a twist to put that color to the top, what will be the top of the jig when you're fishing it, the back. So my yellow, this is just a regular sunshine yellow, it's not fluorescent. Sometimes duller colors are nice as well, the same colors but kind of muted. Like here's an example of a chartreuse tail that's kind of washed out compared to the one that I'm using right now. But here's some jigs I did the other day, and that's a good looking jig as well. So again, I'm just restacking some of those longer hairs back into my pinch. If you see any hairs that you just don't like, you can pull them out and put them right in your bin. Alright. Again, measure to the size you want. I use my hand just so I can see the tips of both of the hairs, both of the different colors against my skin, just to make sure they're the right size. Switch my grip one last time, and keeping this left hand tight. Can lock this on. And again, that was about 5 wraps towards the bend of the hook, crossing back over, and a few wraps up to the head. And I'm just going to turn this and take a peek at it. This yellow might, just like I was saying, that's if I finish this jig now, that would be enough hair for a nice looking jig. So I will be a little bit sparse. I'll take a smaller pinch of this orange. So it's definitely not a third, and a third. But we're going to take a look at this jig when it's done and see how well I did. Again, I'm just restacking those longer fibers back into the pinch. Now, the Fire Tiger jig, I like all 3 colors to be the same length. You could do the orange about half. That's a nice look on the jig as well. But on this one, on these, we are doing all the same length. And here we go. We're gonna lock this on. Wraps back towards the bend of the hook, and then I brought my touching wraps all the way up to the head. And I'm letting go right now just so we can take a peek at this, what it looks like. With 3 color jigs, sometimes I have to be careful. If you don't bring that wrap all the way back, you'll see the wraps underneath. And sometimes that's an easy fix where you can just, walk your thread and just put one wrap to match it all up. This one we were fine though. And then to finish this, just walk the thread touching wraps back to the center, and then wraps back to the head. Wraps about 1/4 the way back, and then back to the head. So that makes a nice cone-shaped collar where it gets thinner down towards the hair. To finish this off, just going to take size A thread and make a loop of a opposite color, and I put it under my last wrap to do a whip finish this way. With the loop like this, it makes it easier for me to make the collar look pretty. You could whip finish this by hand. You could use a whip finish tool. whatever you're comfortable with. But I think that makes a collar that's real pretty. So there we are so far. Alright, to finish this, put it back in the vise. I have a Sharpie marker. Any permanent marker would work well. But I have a purple Sharpie marker. I'm going to rotate the jig just so I can look at this side of the hair. We're going to do 4 stripes up the side and turn it to the 9 o'clock, and I'll do the 4 stripes up this side. And then to finish our collar, I have a lacquer-based head cement, and this is thinned down just enough so it will saturate into the threads. And I also end up touching the edge of the collar and the hair so that the head cement that touches the hair, capillary action will draw it to the inside of the collar. One down. Not bad, Jid. Not bad at all. There we go. So I have to do a few dozen of these, but I also have in front of me another head that I also need to do the same pattern on. So we'll do one of those now. This is a 5/8 flathead. Hook shank on this is a little bit smaller. The profile, of course, you have that wider profile. It's kind of a very fishy looking profile. But again, we'll lock our thread on, and I walk it back about 1/3 of the way towards the bend of the hook. And just like before, we'll start with the chartreuse. Again, pulling out those fibers from the butt end that are either broken or those shorter hairs. And then I'll switch my grip. And I'll stack the longer hairs back into the pinch. And again, any hairs that you just don't like, you can pull them out and put them in the bin. Not bad. So again, we'll measure the length of the body past the bend of the hook. And this is just before the end of the silver. Lock this on. This pinch compared to the ball head is much sparser. And tying the flathead jigs, it's a little deceiving. It looks like you want to put a big bunch of bucktail on it. But the way it tapers, if you have too much hair, your collar and your head and then the body, they don't seem to fall into line. We'll add our yellow. And again, just measuring, making sure that the ends line up. Switch grips And keep my left hand pinched tight. So, a few wraps towards the bend of the hook, and then you cross back over, locking your wraps on with a few wraps towards the head. And then here we go with our third color. Stacking the hairs by hand allows the pinch to remain somewhat natural looking. I don't want to stack the hairs so it's just straight across, or even if you trim them so they're straight across. But I tend not to do such a long tapered tail because primarily these jigs are for walleye. I want to avoid some of those short strikes where you just have a hair that's just tickling the nose of the walleye, and they keep nipping at the tail. We really want them to nail that hook. So again, I'm just going to take a look at that. And here's an example. I can see that this top wrap, I could bring back one more rotation, where you can see the wrap right before. So I try to make the collar as small as possible, so just very carefully lining those two up so they're in line, a pretty collar. If I tied it off the way it was, it would fish just fine and be a nice jig, but always try to make it look as good as possible. And again, just finishing it with my loop under the last wrap and drawing that tag end underneath the collar, just so it's a nice clean knot. So far so good. Put this back in the vise. Stripe it 1, 2, 3, 4, and turn it 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, just like that ball head jig, I'm going to finish this off with lacquer-based head cement on the threads of this jig. So I'm going to continue with these. I got to do a few dozen of these 3/8 balls. Just going to sit here and tie for a while. It's going to be cold today. They're calling for snow, so I might just end up sitting here and tying for most of the day. But this is my first unofficial live video. Been playing around with the OBS and the Stream Deck and trying to get everything working nicely together. There's things that I know that I want to do in terms of regular production, which goes back to my college days in the 80s when I did study radio and television. Though the technology, it was a lot more hands-on back in the day. But the switcher that I'm using actually connects directly. Can't figure out how to get them to play nice together, at least the way I want to do it. There's pros and cons of using them separately or together. Right now, I think my plan is to record with the switcher and do the live stream with the switcher that I have, and then there'll be the YouTube saved live version, and then I could also go back in and edit it fairly easily with the software that's the same, from the same company, which that has its benefits. But doing it that way, I don't have the, using the switcher to do credits and the countdown timer and all that stuff. So still playing around with it. It's not hard. Time consuming, I suppose. And I figure it's not that old people don't know how to use technology, and I'm lumping myself into that old people category for this discussion. It's that we know there's other important things to do than wasting an entire 8-hour day trying to figure out how to build a countdown timer to go on your live stream. You know what I mean? So stacking these by hand. I did move my lamp that was sitting here in front of my face. A little bit harder to see. I have this white mat on my desktop that I can actually see the fibers against that white background. So this collar is a little thin. I'm adding a few extra wraps just to give it the proportion that I want. Trying to keep it small as possible. These, of course, all have to look similar enough to be on the same card hanging on the wall. So typically, to speed these up, I'll do just the hairs first. I'll do a dozen or two from just the hair, and then I will then stripe them all, the dozen or two that were finished, all at the same time. Hang them back on the rack, and then when I'm done striping, go back and I will do the collars with the lacquer-based head cement, all at the same time. So that speeds up the process just a little bit, kind of assembly lining it for yourself. I don't necessarily try to tie quickly. Muscle memory kind of takes care of that. You know, you just try to concentrate on your technique, and then the muscle memory and repetition will speed up the process. These three tails that I'm using too are all fairly nice. Nice hair. They're all the similar thickness and similar texture in the sense of their, you know, they kind of look crinkly, that they're not all straight, but they're also not all twisty. So I'd like to remind everybody, if you like what we're doing here today, go ahead, leave a comment. If you have any questions, comment down below as well. Subscribe so you don't miss out on any content or the next time that we're going live. I'm going to try to do this once a week. I have a couple ideas. I've had contact with a couple guys. Going to be doing something bass related, hair jig for bass, and I have a couple ideas for that. As we build an audience, so to speak, we will, I'm sure, be able to field questions while we're tying. And I might even do a day or two where I just have a selection of heads. I'll make sure I have all my materials ready and available, and we'll just tie whatever we want. It won't be 12 of the same jig. We can do different things, different sizes for different species. Here's a pinch that I just took. It's got a little bit of that brown from the center. I'm not terribly concerned about that. Me personally, I think the variance in your color, you know, those little imperfections, are more realistic. You know, you can catch a dozen different perch and none of them have the same stripes, the same thickness of stripes, the same number of stripes, the same colors in terms of brightness, or, you know, how much of their body, let's say a perch, how much of their body is yellow compared to white, compared to orange. Or you catch one of those blue perch, which is always a fun surprise. Again, this yellow has a little bit of that darker color, and you know, the majority of those will pull out because they are a little bit shorter. But if there are a few of those darker hairs that are long and they stay in the pinch, as long as most of that pinch is yellow, it's going to look okay. This part of the tail had a lot of broken tips for some reason. So again, just measuring, making sure the tips line up. Switch my grip. Trim along my fingers. And just place that right on top. I got a hair that went crooked. There we go. Thumbs up. Oh my goodness. Thanks, guys. Not sure if I have the setup completely correct. You know, I want to avoid having a computer sitting on my tying desk. I do have a tablet set up just so I can keep an eye and make sure that the live stream is live streaming. And this will all evolve. You know, I'll add things and take things away until we get the best possible combination of the equipment for the production. I do want to do this more regularly, and I would really I'm kind of looking forward to if eventually there's a good following of tires. Let's see. Let's go to here. So I've belonged to a few different tying groups over the years, and tying guilds here locally in New York State. I really enjoyed the times where we all got together. We'd sit around a big table. Everybody has a good time. Sometimes we tie the exact same thing. Sometimes we're tying different things. One of the groups I was tying with was specifically for fly tying, so we would tie and donate all our flies. We tie different patterns, and we donate all our flies to a Wounded Warrior program, which was pretty neat. But just sitting around the table and the things that you would learn and get just from talking back and forth with the other tyers, watching people and how they do things, that was the real big enjoyable thing for me. So it would be great if this eventually can turn into something like that. I want to do the online live streaming on a more scheduled, on a schedule, so people can plan ahead. And you know, if people are tying along and asking questions, that would be fantastic. If people just want to, you know, watch, I watch live streams all the time, or videos, other tyers. There's a whole handful of tyers that I really enjoy just having in the background and watching how they do things. Even if I continue to do it my way or do things differently, there's always something to learn, and there's always other ways to at least be aware of how it's done. So if a day comes in doing my collars the way I do, so if this is the only way I knew how to whip finish a collar, the day I run out of string for my loop, you know, I'm not going to be able to tie jigs unless I know other techniques that I've learned from other people, that I've seen other people use, that I could also do myself and have a fair amount of skill in completing. So I could whip finish by hand, and I can do it. I would be tying much slower because I don't do it as often as some guys just are really easy. You know, it's easy for them to just grab the string and do whip finish. So, you know, as I'm chatting, I'm gonna stripe these while we're talking. Same thing with using a whip finish tool. So, you know, and just so people know that I'm not like full of crap, I guess. but I do have the tools right here handy. I do use them, especially if I'm at my fly tying desk. I will use a whip finish tool. So I do enjoy tying with other people, even if we're all doing our own thing. Just watching how people do things and their process. See and learn the things that they enjoy doing and see it from that perspective as well. So, just striping those last 3 that we did real quick. And I'm going to finish it up here. We'll end the live stream here. Hopefully I can figure out the small details that I really want to include with the live stream, so it's just not a start and stop kind of thing. And also having my picture-in-picture and the picture-in-picture. So I want to iron some of those things out. Pretty obvious that this is live. So keep an eye out, subscribe so you don't miss any new content. And the next time that I go live, I will work real hard in trying to get a specific schedule. I'm looking at maybe Sunday nights, maybe every couple weeks. And in between those times, I still want to put out a video or two for some other ideas I have, you know, talking about equipment, product reviews, whatever. I do want to chit-chat about scissors one of these days. You know, I have a specific pair of barber scissors that I use that are actually semi-custom, that I had made special. I advocate barber scissors. For decades, I use just the standard barber scissors with the replaceable blades. But I also use, you know, fly tying scissors. And depending on what I'm doing, different tools for different things. So, you know, I'd like to talk in more detail about some of those things. But until we can schedule that time, you know, everybody keep tying. If you have any other ideas, again, I'll just remind you to put those down in the comments. Until next time, guys, tight lines.